Moving on to our constitutional offices. I nominate Ken Larson for the position of governor in Utah. Any seconds? Second? Okay. Did Ken want to speak on behalf of himself?
In my experience, the overwhelming majority of libertarians disagree with at least one plank in the libertarian platform. Personally, I agree 100% with every one of them. Some libertarians might want to change the abortion platform to fit their side of the issue, but not me. I might change the wording of some, but not the intent. So since we can find areas on which to disagree, it's my experience that libertarians just love to search for the area on which they disagree and then debate forever. And this is good amongst libertarians within our own family. The more we disagree, the more we can teach and learn. But it's a disaster when we're trying to recruit. So my recommendation is, when we're dealing with non-libertarians, three things: ask, listen, agree. For example, I've got 4 flyers here on 4 different issues, and I go to a service station and talk to my friend there, and I asked him about these issues, and he expressed where his sentiment was, and I dropped everything that he wasn't interested in and focused on where we agree. Ask, listen, agree. Find a point of agreement, and then you can move on. For example, I have a flyer here saying that gun registration is unconstitutional. It's in favor of gun rights. I took this over to the gun store on, what is it, 2nd South 30, something like that. And I showed them this, Gallinson's, is it? And they just loved it. Oh, yeah, yeah. And when we run out, how do we get in touch with you? Well, here's my contact. So I left that with them. But then I went up to the Utah Pride place up on, what, about 6th North and 4th West. And I didn't talk to them about gun registration. I talked to them about my flyer on marriage discrimination is unconstitutional, and we should allow gays and polygamists to get married. And they loved it, and we didn't talk about guns. But there was a group that's interested in both gay rights and gun rights, and the Stonewall Shooting Sports of Utah, and I have here an email from them where they endorsed my candidacy like they did all the libertarians, because we're the only party that agrees with them on both issues, gay rights and gun rights. And so that was great. But I didn't talk to them about the drug war. I took my flyer on the drug war to a little smoke shop up there on 4th South and showed them that, and they just loved it. And I didn't talk about guns or marriage. I talked about drugs and drug rights. And so they were interested in it. I went over to Pioneer Park, a bunch of people out there camped out, and handed them my little flyer entitled "Policing the World is Unconstitutional," with which they agreed. So find out where we agree and then discuss that, and that's how we can recruit people. So that's my first thing. Stop debating, stop looking for disagreement, look for agreement, and recruit. My second point is, get out of our minds. People make decisions down here in their emotions and in their hearts. Then they use their minds. I think I got an email from Jim Dexter, which was very fascinating on this. The guy says, like a drunk who uses a lamppost for support rather than illumination, these people use their logical minds to support and validate what they've already decided in their hearts. So get into your heart if you can. And for that, I have a little 5-point plan. The founders said we are all equal. That's number one, we're equal. If we're equal, that makes us brothers and sisters. Number 2, we're brothers and sisters. If we are brothers and sisters, then we love each other. That's number 3, love. Now we're coming down into the emotional, passionate part of it. We love each other. If you love somebody, the next step is tolerance. You tolerate them. You tolerate their differences, even if you disagree, as long as they're not hurting anybody. And finally, the 5th step is peace. That's the path to peace. Equality, brotherhood, love, tolerance, peace. That's my effort to get into the emotional side of the issue, because that's where people discuss things and where people really make up their minds. And so that's my recommendation. So when I go and speak as a candidate, I'm going to start my speech by saying brothers and sisters. I don't use those terms lightly. I use them because the founders said we're equal, and if we're equal, that makes us brothers and sisters in that sense of the word. And then I go on to say if we're brothers and sisters, we should love, tolerate, and so forth, and peace. So that's kind of my agenda. I'm open to questions. I think we're in a hurry. No questions? Great. Yes?
I'd like to have your pamphlet on the drug and war.
It's yours. Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Anybody who would like to speak on behalf of none of the above? Jim?
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jim Dexter. I was state chair of this party from 1995 to 2001.
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just angle that mic up so we can get people, because I actually have gotten emails, people are watching, so.
Okay, my
Thank
name
you.
is Jim Dexter. I was state chair of the party from 1995 to 2001. One of the things that happened during that period was that we threw Ken Larson out of the party for fraud. He committed a massive fraud against every member of the party, and we tossed him out. Everybody who joins the party nowadays has to sign the pledge that says, I do disagree, will not initiate force or fraud. It says so very plainly on the sign-up page for this party on the website that a violation of the pledge is a reason for revocation of membership. So Dr. Larson is not even eligible to be a candidate because he was tossed from this party. He's not eligible to be a candidate because he's not even a libertarian. I have his Facebook page here. Here's Dr. Larson. Read what says who the political views are. I don't have enough for everybody. Right there. It says, political views, Free Agents Party.
Yes. After I was kicked out, I formed a free agents party.
No, you formed the Personal Choice Party. In fact, not only after we tossed Dr. Larson out, he went out and founded a rival party, attracting away the people that would have joined our party and swelled our ranks. He has been an active enemy of this party. And now, once again, because he failed to keep his own party on the ballot through 2 election cycles, now he comes back to a successful party saying, I want to be on here. He's not eligible. None of the above. I'll tell you what, after we tossed Dr. Larson out, we had people come up to us, gun shows, because we had a front page article in the Tribune by Dan Harry. It says headline, Libertarians Boot Loose Cannon. And there was a picture of Ken in his Brigham Young outfit. Because he's a clown. He likes to dress up. You don't know what his behavior is going to be. You don't know what he's going to do to embarrass this party if you make him your nominee. 4 years ago, this body, but very few people there I think were here, nominated Del Shanzi. Super dope.
1 minute left.
Became our nominee. And we lost. We gained ballot status because Andy got 4%, and the guy, the auditor candidate...
He got 2.5. He did.
The auditor candidate, he got 6%.
Right.
But he never came back. Why? Because he didn't want to be associated with a party that ran Del Shanzi. And there are people here who will walk away from this party forever if you nominate Ken Larson. I yield the floor to Willie Starr Marshall. Oh, by the way, you should read this book in which Ken compares himself to Jesus and Santa. It's really...
Thank you, Jim. And we'll let Willie speak. What I would encourage is please, because there weren't enough copies for everyone, please, anybody who is going to vote on this issue, please make an effort to read what Jim is giving around, because, so if you have a copy, share it around, because he didn't bring enough for everybody. Willie, it's all yours.
Yeah, my name is Willie Marshall. For those of you who don't know me, I guess I'm Utah's most successful libertarian politician. I was appointed to 6 positions, 6 different public offices, and then I was elected mayor of my town becoming Utah's first gay mayor, openly gay mayor. I was not Utah's first libertarian mayor. That would have been Alex Joseph. Libertarians are very tolerant of eccentrics, but that doesn't mean we are morally bound to let them use the LP to get a podium before the media and the public. It doesn't do any good for the cause of liberty. The fact is that in the past, when more LP Utah members knew Ken Larson and chose none of the above rather than have him as our candidate for governor, it speaks volumes. To be able to piss off enough libertarians that they'd actually rather have NOTA really says a lot. Ken Larson, unfortunately, is a narcissist. He will only run for the top of the ticket to get attention and stroke his ego. His antics, which he thinks are quite funny, don't bring votes, they don't bring money, and they don't bring new members into the party. He's driven people out of the party and then filed a frivolous harassment lawsuit against the LP and its officers. He then went on to start his own political party, and now he's back and thinks we should honor him with the top slot again.
1 minute left.
I think that first, Ken, if he wants to show that he's changed, he should make restitution to those he has harmed on terms that are agreeable to them. In other words, if they've suffered any kind of damages, he should pay them money for it. And also he should attain a $50 million bond to ensure his good behavior in the future, because $50 million was, I believe, the amount he sued the party for.
Thank you, Willie. Now, Andy brought up a point that Ken finished actually his 5 minutes early, so he actually has a little bit of time, and Andy would actually like to speak his own mind, but on behalf of Ken, do we have to do any kind of voting for that, or?
Let me suggest that we maybe just move to extend the time as we need to, but
Okay.
maybe we'll do it in 10-minute increments.
So can we get a second to that?
I make a motion to extend for this discussion for 10 minutes.
Okay, so yeas? Nays? Okay, Andy, please.
I'm the state treasurer and perennial candidate for attorney general, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when I first got involved in this party, it's been 16 years, something like that. The first two people I probably met were Jim and Ken. And I have to say, I thought Ken was crazy as a loon. But I've gotten to know Ken over a lengthy period of time, and maybe I've become crazier or he's become less. I don't know. But I will tell you this, that there was a split in the party several years ago. Ken left, and Jim was very glad to see him go, and many others were perhaps too. I have maintained a friendship with Ken for years. I have encouraged, coaxed him to come back, and here he is. And I personally am very glad to see it. Jim or Ken said to me recently, if I won't let you down, Andy, I won't do anything crazy if I'm nominated. I believe him, and I don't know that I would require him to sign that under oath or whatever. I think he's mellowed quite a bit. I am glad to see, and I really honestly believe that Ken is a faction, or a leader of a faction. And we used to call them in the old days hamsters, among others. And people who believe in legalization, as I fervently do. It's an area of our party. And I am personally very thrilled to see Ken sitting here, and I am pleased to see him being active in our party. I know there are some people who are angry as can be about it, and you'll get your chance to vote one way or the other in a little while, and I just wanted to make sure you heard my point of view.
Question.
Sure.
Is it true that Dr. Larson's membership check in this party bounced?
Yes, but it was made good.
Very bad.
It did.
What's the problem? Always the problem.
If that's important to you, you've got your options.
Yes, Vince.
Who would be Dr. Larson's running mate?
What we've discussed.
Under our bylaws, we wait until the person's nominated, then we.
Oh, I hope that's okay for you. That let's wait until the vote to get there.
Let's leak it right now, just in case, that we have had a tentative acceptance from Rob Latham if he were nominated. There might be someone else nominated. I would hope that it would be Rob.
And maybe, can I speak at some point in time on this?
Yes, please. The floor is yours. We still have, I think, 5 minutes left on the extension.
Well, and for those who don't know me, my name's Rob Latham. I've also been a past state chair, currently sit on the Judicial Committee of the National Libertarian Party. I've also been a regional alternate for the National Libertarian Party. And I'm happy to see Ken back too. So I was there when I was, I think, a young law student coming out of law school. We're talking about the mid to late 90s, I think, when this little split happened. So even though there was this vote on Ken's nomination for governor way back when, it was only by one vote that NOTA prevailed over Ken. And admittedly, I thought Ken was a more colorful character back then than he is now, and he's certainly mellowed with age. But what I've been impressed by Ken, so even though he was basically booted out by folks in the party, and I may even be among those who voted in favor of that at the time. I think I was serving as legal counsel. There were certainly a lot of people upset for Ken over the litigation. But Ken, in my mind, even since then, through forming the Personal Choice Party and another activity he's been engaged in, has always been at least a small L libertarian and a big-time liberty activist in Utah. And I think that speaks volumes about Ken. So despite that setback in our internal party politics, he continued to advance the cause of liberty in Utah. And so good on him. I think this has been more than a decade old, this little spat. And the people who are here now shouldn't be bound by those old battles. And I think one of the things we, by the way, ought to do, just to make it official, is make a motion and pass it to reinstate Ken in the Libertarian Party of Utah, because I think too much time has passed. Let's put that behind us and move forward. And I'm happy to take questions, again, just as a person being there. I feel bad about that. People had to pay attorney's fees and whatnot, and there were bad feelings all around. There's very few of those people who are involved. I think Jim is maybe the only one who's here today, and I think it's time to move on. I'm not crying for Jim. I know Jim is doing just fine, despite that lawsuit. So anyway, I'll leave it there. But again, I'm happy to entertain any questions. And because I'm welcoming Ken back, I offered, if he's willing to be our candidate, I'm happy to be his running mate, because I think it's time to move forward.
Okay, my question on this centers around the fact of I don't think it's appropriate in any circumstance to ban someone from anything for life. That is just crap, personally. I have I just don't have the patience for that. But at the same point, I'll say, you don't let someone keep punching you in the face either. You do fight back. So what does it take for the rest of those here who would be against Ken? What would Ken have to do in their mind to make him an eligible candidate? How does he offer some level of restitution? And what should we, who weren't involved, who didn't know, how could we even begin to hold it against him?
And I think your question, I honestly think that's up to every individual person. I don't think as a group, I'm not going to define, I'm not going to let some person hold out and say, because, have a heckler's veto, so to speak. Someone, no amount can possibly ever satisfy me. So I think, again, it's up to us as delegates to decide whether things have been made right or whether it's time to move on, or should the party be used as a mechanism to fight that battle still, or if people feel aggrieved, maybe they need to take that issue and resolve it outside of our political party and not use the political party to advance, again, some personal grievance they have with Ken. Question from Brooke.
As someone who's new to the Libertarian Party in Utah specifically, can I get a little bit more information about what this dispute was about?
And I'm just going to talk to someone who was there. Volumes have been written about it in email, and I think if you ask different people, you're going to get a different discussion. I mean, the way I remember it is Ken was a candidate for governor. He ran a convention. He had a colorful character. I want to say it was called the Church of the Hemp Goddess or something like that. And he dressed up as the Hemp Fairy, and we had, you know, this colorful party history. We had this dispute be what we called the suits and the tie-dyes. So, right, there were kind of these more straight-laced folks who didn't like that kind of colorful stuff, and the people who were a little more free-spirited and didn't mind that kind of stuff. The suits prevailed, and you know, didn't like Ken being our candidate because of this colorful way he was doing things. And so we had a state convention, just like this one. He was a nominee. It was a tie vote. Our state chair had to break the vote, Jim Lorenz, and he asked Ken to be, you know, responsible and more restrained. And Ken didn't go for that. He's a libertarian at heart, and he just wouldn't go for that. And you know, I don't. These days, I think he's mellowed, and I don't think he would get in a hemp fairy suit these days. Maybe he would. I don't know. So, in any event, he lost the party's nomination, and then he turned around, hired a lawyer, and sued the party and its officers for not nominating him. And if memory serves me correctly, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. By the way, this is a long time ago. My memory's kind of faded from it. There was a lawsuit. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed in court for not having a cause of action, and it was kind of over and done with. But I know party officers, Jim Elwell, I forget whether Jim Dexter was one of the people named or not, Jim Lorenz, you know, had to hire an attorney, and I recall their attorney didn't work for free. So, I mean, it's something, you know, that, you know, makes me feel bad, but
Okay,
you know,
time.
it was more than a decade ago, so I think it's time to move on, and I shouldn't hold our party back. Sure. Sorry, unless someone wants to move to extend time.
No.
A move to extend the time for 2.5 minutes so I can speak on behalf of none of the above.
You need a seconder?
I'll second.
Call question?
Call for a vote.
Call for a vote. Yeas to move to extend 2.5 minutes. Okay, against? Carries.
Okay. There is a candidate being considered by this convention for the office of, well, for every office. It's none of the above, or as I will refer to him as nobody. Nobody cares about your liberty. Nobody cares about your taxes. Nobody cares about compulsory schooling, gay marriage, or any of this other stuff. So if you want an established candidate, you can go to votefornobody.com and check it out, and you'll see that this is the candidate for you. Thanks for your time.
Okay, we've got a minute and a half left. Well, let's because we're still in the motion for 2.5 minutes with none of the above. So Willie, please.
I addressed this a little bit in my talk. If Ken were serious, if he's changed, I agree people can change, but the fact of the matter is people seldom do. If he wanted to sincerely show that he's changed, he should make restitution. He should apologize individually to the people he's offended. He should apologize publicly. He should find out what he can do to actually pay the attorney's fees with interest. And like I say, if a $50 million bond to ensure his good behavior, then I'll believe him.
We've got 30 seconds left. If anybody else on behalf of NOTA, 30 seconds.
Rob Latham described the situation of the party in the mid-'90s as between the suits and the tie-dyes. That's not true. It was between the people who wanted to build the Libertarian Party into a serious political force and those who just wanted to put on their hippie costumes and dance around in the park. There was no animosity. We welcomed the people, when, the hippies. We love them, we agree with them, we just didn't want them to be our candidates. We wanted serious people the press couldn't make fun of. This is a party of principles. Stand on those principles. Vote None of the above.
Okay, so, well, we've got this gentleman who's been waiting. Yes, sir. Okay, move to add 60 seconds. Are you in favor of the NOTA? Because we'll just extend the NOTA.
No,
On behalf of Ken? Okay, so let's give Ken, we did a 2.5 extension on NOTA. Let's do 2.5 extension. I would also like to throw in there, this is it. And then we move on and actually just vote on it.
Okay, thank you. My name is Dwight Steffner, I just want to say I was in the party 99, 2000, 2001, and this was a big issue. I recruited 75 people a year for 3 years, and our party was increasing then, and I got 2 national awards. I feel all of this about what Mr. Dexter is saying is true. I think what several other people say, including the former mayor, is true. But are we the party of toleration? If we are, we should vote for Ken Larson because he says he'll stay within the party. And we should forgive him. Thank you.
Okay, and you wanted to add something?
Can I add something as well?
Yes, please.
Do I need to vote anything to that?
Just go and let's keep moving on this. Although I'm sure all the internet viewers are enjoying the high drama, so.
They actually are. Okay. All right, I'd like to take this moment to introduce myself. I'm Courtney White. I know for a lot of you, I'm a new face. And it's true, I've only been in the party for 7 years. I've only been active in the state party for maybe 1.5 years, 2 years. And I guess the question is, what are we doing to build the party? Now, I remember putting out a newsletter here about 2 months ago asking for candidates. Now, I remember only getting how many candidates did we get? A handful, 10, 12 candidates? Now, I put that email out, and I received Ken's response. Ken filed for governor. Now, the question is, if people are talking about how are we going to build the party, how are we going to build the party? Well, infighting's not going to build the party. Volunteering is going to build the party. Being supportive of people is going to build the party. Now, we're talking about a treasury of $5,000. That is pitiful. How are we going to put forward this party if we don't fight to get candidates elected? Now, kicking people out at convention is not going to do that. Yes, I understand the problem with Ken. I can understand it, and it is an issue. But that was, Ken, how many years ago was that? 96. That was 16 years ago. Now, 16 years ago, I was 11. I did a lot of stupid things when I was 11. So now that I'm 27, I'm a little bit wiser, and maybe Ken, now that you're older, you're wiser. And I think that in this situation, I think the best case would be to allow Ken to run as governor. Ask Ken, please, not as any sort of official thing, just as a thing between friends, please behave yourself. I trust that you will. And I think that we need to move forward as a positive party, as a party that will stand with each other and that will move forward to build the Libertarian Party of Utah into a formidable force in this state. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Courtney. I do appreciate, Jim, that you came. I appreciate that everybody came who has a case to be made on this point. That's what I wanted to do because I wasn't there. So I'm very glad everybody came and made their points. At this point, I would actually, unless anybody has any other suggestions, I say we get this down to the vote.
The question, what is the vote on, what is the motion on the...
Yeah, where are we on the motion?
Is it the motion to reinstate Ken? Is that the top motion?
Well, I mean, you got to vote for candidates, but
Okay,
Yeah, sorry,
so let's move on. Let's move on.
Well, can I do a
Yes, please.
point of order here? The problem is in our bylaws, we say that right after we nominate a governor candidate, we then need to nominate a lieutenant governor candidate. So I'm not quite sure how we do that with this ballot, unless we want to ballot for all candidates and then come back and do the lieutenant governor's race. I suppose we could do it that way.
We might be doing multiple ballots for the governor race. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case, so maybe it would be best to wait until afterwards, and then we can just write in the margins or find some other paper and do that.
So
No, I actually, I think I'm with Rob. I think we probably ought to nominate somebody for lieutenant governor, and they either rise or fall together, don't they?
Well,
So let's do that.
no, I think.
No.
Let me.
I'm not with Rob then.
Let me read from our bylaws. It's I don't know if people have it in front of them. Chapter 3 Convention Procedures, Section 2, Sub B. And it says the gubernatorial candidate nominated by the nominating convention will nominate a candidate for lieutenant governor who meets the requirements of Utah law. So already there we've got established who our gubernatorial candidate is. That person nominates their lieutenant governor candidate, and then the party passes on whether to ratify or not that candidate.
So this is a ballot issue then?
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's just a timing issue when you want to do it. I mean, if you want to, I mean, we could give ourselves a preview of how that vote might go. You know, if the chair's willing to entertain it, I'd make a motion just to be clear to reinstate Ken Larson as a member of the Libertarian Party.
Okay, so we'll vote on the move to reinstate Ken.
Is there a second to that motion?
Is there a second? If you keep it to 30 seconds, I mean, I'm a talk show host, so I'm good at this, so 30 seconds is all you get. Go. I won't count the travel time.
Since its inception, the Libertarian Party has been a very delicate coalition between the suits and tie-dyes. But there's always been this conflict between them that Jim brought up. And in '95, I was at Lorenzo's house, the state chairman, and they were discussing how they could eliminate a chairman in Davis County because he looked like a tie-dye, and that embarrassed them, and they wanted to recruit the suits. There was this effort by the suits to expunge and expel all the tie-dyes. That's part of what set up what I did. I was the only one who filed for governor. The party constitution required that the party put me on the ballot without a vote. That was in the Constitution. That's why I went to court, asking a judge to order them to follow their own rules.
Okay, Ken, that's it. Thank you.
Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. This could go on all day. This is seriously it, guys. This is it.
Please end it.
Yeah, and then we'll move on. Please go. 30 seconds, Jim.
Ken Larson ran in the Democrat Party. We had nominated Ron Amos as our gubernatorial candidate when Ken Larson walked in. Ken Larson screamed at Ron Amos, got Ron Amos to resign the nomination, and then he lost to NOTA by 1 vote. Then he turned around and he sued the officers of the party for breach of contract, alleging that we had guaranteed to make him. There was nothing about the Constitution. There was nothing in the party's Constitution at the time that required us to make him the candidate. There was a state law on the books the year before that required a party to nominate someone who had filed for office, but they eliminated that. And so he was defeated in convention. He was not the nominee.
Thank you. Okay.
Can we go back to the motion on the
Yes,
floor?
so the motion to reinstate, all in favor?
To reinstate.
To reinstate Ken?
And I'm going to ask if that motion is really in order. He paid his dues. He's a member.
I paid my dues and signed the pledge. How do you require me to say?
He was not by unanimous vote of 1996.
The question is the bylaws, do they have any provisions on what it means to be kicked out of the party, and does it have any provisions on how to be reinstated?
Yeah, and if I can speak to my motion, I mean, that's really the question is, can we be bound by what happened ages ago? I make that motion in the spirit of just covering all our bases.
Okay, so let's
that this convention is the mindset that even if that was an issue way back then, you know, here's how we're resolving it now. But you can rule it out of order if you want.
All right, yeah, I'm going to rule it out. I'm going to assume he's reinstated just to get this going, because I think that during the vote of none of the above, people who do care about that vehemently, there is time between now and the time when you actually cast your vote. You can go around and stump all you want, okay? That's why I invited both sides to come here, because I frankly don't know. I wasn't there. But if you can make the case and you can convince people, then NOTA could win. So, yes.
Well, and so maybe to rephrase that, rather than take that motion, a vote for Ken Larson for governor might also be considered a motion to reinstate him as a party member.
Yes, okay, fine. So let's move on. If there's no, please do me a favor, no more about this. Let's move on.